Helping to lead a early stage company. It's great to see this work recognized by an organization that's been as successful and has made up as many successful people as TiE has been over the years and continues to be. So thank you very much for this honor. I want to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about TransEnterix and how we are working to advance surgery through innovation. This is really the whole story of what we're attempting to do. It's really the evolution of laparoscopic surgery to something that could be less invasive than what's available today. If you think about what's trying to be achieved in surgery, it's actually, take all the complexity aside, it's a very simple geometric problem. You're trying to triangulate. Think about how you do anything as a human being with opposable thumbs. A right and a left, you're trying to have a central field of visualization, and then you have different ways and different tools that get increasingly more and more complex to be able to perform the task that you're trying to do. The same is true in surgery. And really, if you think about just the simple geometric process of open surgery, the idea was to create a rather large incision. They used to say, big incision, big surgeon. And you're using that incision to provide you the access that you need to be able to get at the tissue, retract, cauterize, dissect, suture, vessel seal, and then get out, and then close that incision. And the patient, of course, has a commensurate recovery given how invasive that procedure may have been. A major advance in surgery came really, through the mid-1980s and really kind of took off in the beginning of the 1990s, led really through Europe and also here in the United States with what we term as rigid laparoscopy. And this is keyhole surgery. And the idea was, instead of making these larger incisions, let's insufflate with CO2 gas. Let's create basically multiple access points through smaller incisions, usually around anywhere between 5 millimeters and 12 millimeters, but multiple all over the abdomen. And that will allow us to triangulate and have access and reach the tissue that we need to reach. And then there'll hopefully be a whole series of tools that will evolve and advance that will allow more and more complex things to be done in surgery. And this has driven an incredible explosion of technologies and markets, and it's a big contributor to J&J's earnings and Covidien. And a lot of large companies clearly have built big franchises in this space. But the idea then goes, can you do what you're trying to do in surgery? Can you triangulate without having to put 5, 6 different trocars all across the abdomen with the commensurate scars that follow? And is there a way you can still have the access that you need and create the tools that you need to do the job, but perhaps go through one incision, particularly an incision that could be hidden in sort of a natural orifice like the belly button? And so that's really the idea of flexible laparoscopy, and that's what TransEnterix is the first pioneer in hopefully bringing this whole new idea to the surgical device market. And the idea really is about triangulating through one incision. And since we've been given a few extra minutes, I do want to point out the fact that there are a lot of other devices that have attempted to go at this idea of one incision or single incision. And really that first generation attempt is sort of it's a first generation attempt. And what they've done basically is they've failed to provide triangulation. They've created maybe an access device that crams everything into one small hole. And then you basically, actually, believe it or not, and it's amazing to think about this in surgery, but the surgeon has to cross their hands to use instruments so that their right hand is actually controlling the left instrument that's moving, the left hand is controlling the right instrument that's moving. They sometimes are having to use like pre-bent or curved instruments. It's incredibly rudimentary, and it feels like a real step backward for them, and that's kind of really delayed the ability to bring this less invasive approach to a lot of surgeries to market. I mean, just think about it. Would you want to do that for a very fine surgery in this litigious environment that we live in? Probably not. So that's what TransEnterix is attempting to solve. And our core technology really is around flexible, steerable devices. So can you bring the whole world of catheter-based medicine and the minimally invasive approach that you have with flexible catheter-based treatments and technologies, and can you bring that now into the world of laparoscopic surgery? And there's a lot of problems that have to be solved in order to do that, and we've been working on those problems and bringing a product to market. And we're actually, I want to say, we're in the market, we're doing surgeries, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. But this is just a couple beauty shots of the device. What it basically does is it opens up and provides that triangulation using different flexible instruments that the surgeon can control with an interface that's actually outside of the body and that's in a fixed position at the bedside table for the patient using long, flexible catheter-based instruments. Just a simple illustration of a lot of the different tools that you need to bring. You have to have sort of a basic tool set of flexible instruments. As you can see here, if you move your right hand, the actual right instrument is moving and being articulated. Same with the left hand, moving the left instrument. It's a very simple interface that can have a very low profile fit into the OR. So it's kind of just affixed to the patient bed and actually can move the patient. You'll make a small incision, 18 millimeters, the size of a dime, in the umbilicus. And then you would insert our device and then actuate the triangulation. The device opens up sort of like an umbrella, is how we sort of describe it to patients. And then you could bring in through four different channels, 2 rigid and 2 flexible, different instruments, both off-the-shelf instruments, scopes, and different retracting devices, and then, of course, our own flexible instruments. And what you're able to recreate here, and I should have just shown you some more surgical video, just went ahead and gave you the simulation. But basically what we're able to do then is do the surgery as you're expecting to do it as a surgeon, giving yourself that triangulation of view. You close up the device like an umbrella again, and then remove the specimen, if you're removing a specimen, and the entire device through that same 18 millimeter incision hidden in the umbilicus. And that earlier photo that I showed was actually one of our first gastric sleeve patients. So there's certainly a broad potential for this. There's a huge market in laparoscopic surgery. I mean, this is just the number of laparoscopic surgeries performed just in the United States each year. And the boxes that I've sort of outlined here are the places that we've actually already performed procedures. We've actually performed a little over 1,000 procedures to date so far. We are FDA approved. We received our FDA approval in the end of 2009, and we actually commercialized and launched in April of just this past year, 2010. So we're coming up on our just past our 1-year anniversary about being in the market with sort of a limited release. And we've learned just a ton by being actually in surgery and learning to further iterate our device, and obviously that's the best way to get feedback with your surgeons. And what we found also is that we can certainly go broad and be in a number of different specialties and in a number of different areas. Laparoscopic surgery covers the gambit between urology, gynecology, general surgery, colorectal work. But what we've actually found is that there's a real opportunity to focus in our execution in bariatrics, and that's what we're trying to do. And there's a number of reasons for that. Partly what we're seeing is the success in particularly gastric sleeve surgeries and gastric band surgeries with our device. That's where many of our early adopters want to take the technology and have been doing a lot of cases. Their patients have been delighted with the results because part of the reason they're doing this is for the cosmetic and health benefits of bariatric surgery, and they don't want to have multiple scars that they're going to have for the rest of their life as they're having this tremendous improvement in their life as well. And it's a huge market. It's actually growing at 2 times the rate of the general surgery market overall in terms of devices at around 15 compound annual growth rate. And it's got a very low penetration in terms of the market opportunity. For those of you in the venture capital world, you probably are well aware in life sciences of a plethora of companies that have come up to look at obesity and metabolic diseases and try to treat them through different innovative ways. And, you know, many of those just haven't taken off. Reimbursement tends to be a real challenge. Takes a long time to get the data necessary. The great thing here is that this technology now with surgery has kind of gotten over that hump and is well reimbursed, and is now beginning to grow in its acceptance. And actually, it's very low penetrated. Just recently, for instance, the FDA approved a lower BMI indication so that many more patients, basically 76 million in the U.S. now would qualify for bariatric surgery under this new lower BMI indication that has just been approved by the FDA for gastric banding, for instance. So we seem to be in the right place with bariatrics to really provide value to surgeons and patients in a market that's really growing. And so that's really where, as a company that can sometimes perhaps get too unfocused by being in so many different spaces in surgery, we've really chosen, because our customers have kind of taken us there as surgeons and patients, that wow, with bariatrics we could really transform the way many of these procedures are done and the quality of the recovery and the cosmetics that they then have after those procedures. But we also feel that there's a bigger idea here as well with flexible laparoscopy. And right now, if you think about sort of the 4 pillars of surgery and what you're trying to do in the different devices that are in that marketplace, you certainly have access systems, and we think that we're a very, very innovative access system that sort of comes at the ability to triangulate and get access to tissue in a very unique and differentiated way. And that's certainly a large market that's growing. And also then you need to have the different hand instruments that can do the work. What's going on at that distal tip of the instrument? Does it need to suction irrigate? Does it need to cauterize? What kind of energy do you have going through that device? All the kind of different tasks that need to be done require the right tools. And we've already developed many of the tool set for ourselves, and we're all constantly expanding and working with partners to broaden that tool set. And what's great is we can borrow from the world of catheter-based instruments and catheter-based technologies to now suddenly provide an access device that allows surgeons to use those flexible instruments in a novel way in laparoscopic surgery. They couldn't do it before because you couldn't control it. It would go in there, and how do you drive it? How do you move it? Our device gives you that capability. Another major pillar is vessel sealing. I mean, if you think about going in there and doing real advanced surgery, you got to divide and seal tissue and blood vessels, and you either use staplers many times to do that for larger tasks in surgery, or you might use a more fine advanced energy vessel sealer. And so those are two other areas that we have engaged at sort of bringing into on a flexible shaft those kinds of devices to then be able to control and use in surgery, so that from a single access point you can still get the articulation, the dexterity, the visualization that you want, so that it performs in a way that's sort of consistent with gold standard laparoscopic surgery when you're putting holes all over the place, but now you can flexibly articulate through one site with all of the different tools that a surgeon would come to expect for advanced surgery. And I don't want to belittle this. I mean, we're a real company with real revenues and real products. We're in the market right now. We received our FDA approval, as I said, at the end of 2009. We were started in 2007. So far, we've raised right at $61 million in financing, which has been great in this environment. I think really shows sort of the potential of the idea. We still have to continue to execute, certainly, and are excited about the resources to be able to do that. So we've had to go through sort of a process, and it has taken time. If you think about our speaker this morning, we've done a number of preclinical labs and first-in-man studies outside of the United States, made numerous product revisions, closed an additional financing round, of course, in 2009, and that's really given us the funds to sort of ramp up and take us to where we are today. We released a little over 13 months ago. Actually, I need to update this slide. Like I said, we've now done, through 2011, year-to-date, a little over 1,000 procedures in the U.S. and in Europe, and we received, of course, CE mark in Europe, so we can be both in the EU and in the United States. And actually on Monday we're releasing our second generation product, which is pretty exciting. I showed some pictures of sort of a device with the alternating sort of silver arms, and that's actually our second generation device, and that's really a result of learning over 1,000 procedures with different surgeons across different specialties what we need to address to further iterate the platform. So I'm really excited that we've been able to bring out that innovation within a year and get approval in this FDA environment within a year of a next generation device. I think that's a real accomplishment that we're all very proud of. And one of the things that we've really had to do also is look at the data and say, okay, what do we need to do to really prove out this benefit? And so we actually did perform an IDE study on our second generation device that just concluded prior to this launch on Monday. And we're actually starting a registry with a number of different sites throughout the United States and also in Europe to track long-term outcomes of patients in bariatrics and general surgery, as well as a few other specialties, to really prove out both the cosmetic benefits, certainly, but also we've seen initially some interesting return to normal activity and return to work benefits because of fewer incisions, less torquing on the incision site because the device is actually stable, so there's less inflammation. We've done some histologic studies and published on that as well, showing less trauma to the tissue. And so we actually think there could be a whole host of less invasive benefits in terms of return to work, normal activity, less pain. But in surgery, you only say that when you have data. So I'm not saying that, but we're going after that. So we're really excited. We feel like we have a big idea in surgery. It's an exciting thing to be part of changing, and we really appreciate the recognition from TiE on our efforts, and thank you for this opportunity.